Well, if that opening video didn't get you fired up, I don't know what will. Of course, that was last year's CANTERRA SEEDS Cup Final, where we saw the Melfort Mustangs win their second straight championship. The only thing we know for sure about this year's CANTERRA SEEDS Cup Final, we will have a new champion crowned. Of course, the Flin Flon Bombers, they are now in their fourth finals appearance in the past 5 seasons, but they have not won a championship since 1993. Yes, that year started with a 19. And on the other side of the docket, the Yorkton Terriers, their last finals appearance and championship were in 2014. Of course, they went to the RBC Cup Final. They won that year. What a fantastic team that was, but they have not been back to the finals since. We have 2 new teams in the finals this year. Last year, of course, Melfort and Weyburn, they both bowed out earlier on in the playoffs. We'll talk about how the Flin Flon Bombers and the Yorkton Terriers got to this point. We'll talk about the matchups. We'll talk about the team stats. We'll talk to each head coach of each team as well during this show. So we're gonna get a lot of information packed in a short period of time for you. This is the CANTERRA SEEDS Cup Finals Preview Show. I'm gonna bring in Jamie Neugebauer right now. Jamie, obviously we are about to hit the road for Game 1, which is on Friday night in Flin Flon at the Whitney Forum. So very exciting time of year. A lot happening in this next 24 hours or so. A lot has happened in the last 24 hours. It's a crazy time. It's the best time. Give me your initial thoughts. Where's your head at right now?
Well, just a historic night yesterday, first and foremost. 2 Game 7s, 4 teams that played their hearts out, 4 teams that didn't quit for a second. Of course, I'm thinking about the Battleford's North Stars.
Yes.
They came back from down 3-0 on the road in Game 7 to tie it. And obviously they lost, but boy, what a show of character by them. And then the Weyburn Red Wings, again, they played their hearts out too. But the Whitney Forum strikes again, Clark, and it is a fortress for a reason.
Yeah, and
it was a fun night, though.
What a fun night! For that crowd that was on hand. Wow, like what a 1-0 Game 7. Like, I don't know if you can ask for a whole lot more in terms of cinema when it comes to hockey. A 1-0 Game 7 with both goaltenders standing on their heads. Fantastic stuff. One quick shout out. All the coaches deserve kudos and shout outs, but one quick shout out, as Nugsy kind of just alluded to. Cody Mapes of the Weyburn Red Wings deserves a ton of credit for the way that he put the team together this year. And Connor Logan, Coach of the Year in our league, deserves a ton of credit for the work that he did with that Battleford's North Stars team. So,
well, he's the Coach of the Year, so he got
Coach of the Year. He did get credit. So never mind, I take it back. No. Obviously, just a huge shout out to those 2 franchises. Either one of them, Nugsy, I think you'll agree with me. I think everyone watching will agree with me. Either one of them would have been fine representatives in this finals as well. However, we now move on it is the number 2 Yorkton Terriers against the number 1 Flin Flon Bombers. I mean, with the way that this season has been going, with the parity across the league, I'm actually a little surprised that our number 1 team and our number 2 team are in the finals, given how close everybody was. But here we are. It's our top 2 teams in the regular season standings. Our top 2 seeded teams are facing off here. Let's have a look at how these teams got here, if we don't mind. Let's put up the bracket. So as you can see, in the semifinals, Flin Flon got all the way to the 7th game against Weyburn, and again, it was a 1-0 win. We'll dive into that just a little bit, not a ton. We're not gonna, this isn't necessarily a recap. This is more just a preview show. And then the Yorkton Terriers, leave this graphic up for a second here, Connor. The Yorkton Terriers, a 6-3 win. Like Nugsy said, they were up 3-0. There was some text messages like, all Yorkton's got to do is lock this down. And then Battleford's came back to tie it up 3-3. And then, of course, Yorkton took over from there. But as you can see in the faded graphics behind, the Flin Flon Bombers in the top left corner there, in Series 1, they swept the Estevan Bruins. Then they faced Weyburn. Now they're facing Yorkton. So I think they might be setting a record for longest distance traveled in a SJHL playoff.
They're trying, for sure.
They're trying. On the other side, you see the Yorkton Terriers in round 1, their Highway 10 rivals. Melville, they got that series by a 4-2 series score, and then they faced Battlefords. Battlefords, of course, they beat the Melfort Mustangs in round 1. Weyburn beat the Nipawin Hawks in round 1. So that's how we got here, Nugsy. As I said, the focus now turns to what is coming. First initial thoughts when you hear the words Flin Flon Bombers versus Yorkton Terriers. What's on your mind when you hear that?
Well, before I answer that question, there was a comment in YouTube from Austin Hebert that I want to reply to.
For sure.
I don't know if we could throw that up or not. He said, hard to decide on who I listen to for each game because both Rob Hart and Benny Walchuk do a fantastic job delivering the broadcast for their respective teams.
Very true.
They absolutely do, Austin. We have a solution for you. Don't we, Clark?
I think so.
You can tune in to SaskTel TV Live Local, channels 48 and 348. Austin Mattis will have the call. I'll be doing color. Clark will be hosting, doing interviews, and the team is assembling. The Avengers are assembling. So the answer is, Austin, you can listen to us if you can't decide. Or have it all at once and have this sort of crazy symphony mashup sort of thing.
Find a way.
Hey, whatever makes you happy, but you can do that. I'm very excited to work as well.
Here's a solution.
Up there.
I got your answer for you, Austin. First period. Austin, which team are you a fan of? I can't tell.
Hard to know.
He's a Yorkton guy?
It's impossible to say.
So period 1, listen to Benny. Okay. Period 2, switch over to Rob. Period 3, tune in to Austin and Nugsy.
I think you should just watch me.
Best of all 3 worlds.
But broadcasters, you have to have a bit of an ego. All right. Anyway, so to answer your question, I think it's great. And you said it's surprising. I guess it's surprising in a small thing versus the field kind of a way. I don't think it's surprising given the two teams.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant given the way our season's gone.
He's not chirping anybody.
No, I'm not chirping anybody.
No, I know. But my point is, I think it's a very interesting stylistic matchup.
For sure it is.
You have the precision, skilled scalpel that is the Yorkton Terriers, skill and intensity and tenacity, and they'll score on you. They'll hit you. And then you have the Flin Flon Bombers that, from top to bottom, obviously doing my prep for the show, for the broadcast, they don't have a single guy over 10 points in the playoffs so far, whereas the Terriers have a bunch of guys who are, award winners, Gabe Corshane led the league in scoring, etc. So they do it different ways. Yorkton's roles are very assigned. Flin Flon, we're all leaders. We're all mashed potato mashers. It'll be a really fun series between 2 great teams that are 2 clearly well-coached teams. And the last thing I'll say, the storylines abound, and we'll get into as many as we can, but, of course, Emery Olauson assisted Mike Reagan for a year in Flin Flon. So the master and the Padawan go at it in Star Wars style, duel of the fates here. So that should be fun.
Love that. So, maybe Emery Olauson picked up a couple of tips on how to win at the Whitney.
And maybe he'll bring a lightsaber.
Maybe.
Because Mike Reagan uses the Force at the Whitney Forum. You know that.
You're right. I hope he doesn't, because I think it's a hazard to have a lightsaber on the bench.
I was
Especially
talking
with how people are so close to that bench.
You know what?
You say the wrong thing,
anything goes at the Whitney Forum. But I was saying to Mike Reagan before
no lightsabers policy.
No lightsabers. Before Game 7, I sent him the highlights of that famous Game 7. That was the last Game 7 of 2023 between the Bruins and the Bombers. Estevan was in town in Game 1 there, in Game 7, pardon me, and obviously had that funky bounce off the boards that handcuffed Cam Herdlicka in the net, and so I said, just tell your guys to aim for that spot on the boards. You need a big goal, aim, and then the snipers will be ready to take out the goalie. And or maybe it's the Force,
it's like a Hail Mary
whatever
play.
It is that Mike uses.
Just shoot at that spot and have everybody sprint down the ice and see what happens. It's going to be a great series, guys. Let's go ahead and do the normal opening show stuff and thank our sponsors here, because we do have to thank our sponsors at this point still. So CANTERRA Seeds, Capital Auto Mall, Canalta Hotels, SGEU, Sask Lotteries, UPL, Chevrolet, Great Western Brewing Company, SaskTel, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, and Vaterstad. And of course, if you're watching on any of our social media channels today, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, please hit the like button. Comment in. We want to hear from you. Send us in your predictions for the finals. Give us your thoughts on the playoffs as a whole, on your team. Whatever you want to talk about, shoot in some comments here as much as you can. And hit the share button. It goes a long way. And with this being the finals preview show, we want it to get out as much as we can. So hit that share button as we go here today. Okay. I think, do we have the head-to-heads ready? Because as you can tell, it's a 10 a.m. show. We're used to having a 1 p.m. show, so a lot of stuff's happening this morning. The gears are cranking at extra speeds today to make sure we got everything ready for the show. So here we go. This is the Yorkton Terriers, Flin Flon Bombers head-to-head stats look. As you can see, in the season series, they played 4 times. The Bombers got the best of Yorkton with a 3-1 season series victory. The Bombers were the number 1 seed. Yorkton was the number 2 seed. The Bombers had an 8-3 record in the playoffs. Yorkton countered with an 8-5 record. Of course, they lost those couple of games in round 1 to Melville, whereas the Bombers swept round 1. So that's the big difference. When you look at it, and when you look at the records, that's the big difference. Yorkton is scoring at a pretty solid pace with a 3.54 average goals for during the playoffs, and they're keeping out goals at a pretty good pace as well, 2.5 goals a game or so. However, when you look at the Bombers, yes, maybe they're scoring slightly less in terms of just under 3 goals per game, but boy, are they keeping pucks out. And of course, that has a lot to do with Game 7 was a shutout. They had 2 shutouts in round 1 as well, so that goes a long way to keeping that average low, of course. Goal differential, very similar, very similar. And when you look at the penalty minutes, this is also kind of similar to how the regular season went. Yorkton, they weren't shy.
No.
Let's say Yorkton in terms of getting into the box. And you have to remember too that there is also 2 games difference here.
Yeah.
Yorkton's played 2 extra games, and they also played, let's be fair, their Highway 10 rival in round 1. So when you play your biggest rival in the first round,
you get on friendly.
Things might happen. Let's just say. So let's keep that in mind as well. There's a little context there. Power plays, Yorkton's power play clicking. Flin Flon's got off to a slow start, but I wouldn't be too worried about that number at 5 for 31 right now. We'll talk to Mike Reagan in a minute to see what he thinks about that, but their penalty kill's great on both sides, really, but Flin Flon has the edge right now in penalty kills. So, Nugsy, there's the head-to-head. There's the overall look. What are your thoughts on this when you see these numbers?
Yeah, you went through them a lot. Look at the season series, obviously 3-1, but, I think it was all really close. I know Flin Flon outscored them 22-9 over those 4 games, but you have to remember, of course, that first of all, 3 of those 4 games were before the new year. Yeah. And second of all, one of those games was an 11-0 washout in Yorkton that the Bombers snapped a 6-game streak. And we can ask Mike Reagan about this, but he has talked a lot about how that game in Yorkton, really kind of changed their season a lot, really set their season on the path, with the confidence that they needed to get to where they're going. They had lost to Yorkton a couple of days before that, in fact, and then went into Yorkton and beat them 11-0. So, of course, 11 of those 22 goals they scored in Yorkton is 1 game. Other than that, Yorkton won 1 game, a terrific performance by Alejandro Montoya in that one, and then 3-1. Yeah, 3-1 and 6-3 wins for Flin Flon in the Whitney Forum. But they were very tight hockey games, very close hockey games. I think, again, it's hard to take too much because, again, obviously neither these teams had their trade deadline reinforcements for 3 of those 4 games. Right. Obviously, both of these teams had maybe a historic trade deadline.
Highlight pack that people are watching is the one game that they played after the trade deadline.
Yeah, that would have been January the 17th. So they played October 15th, October 24th, and November 4th. And then they didn't play until January 17th, and now they're going to play on April the 17th. Right. So that is very interesting. So it's hard to take a lot. My point is, thesis statement here, hard to take a lot from the regular season. Now, that being said, again, it's got to be a confidence thing for the Yorkton Terriers to, have beaten them, to go into the Whitney Forum and make a tight game. And
that goal was the highlight of the week.
That was the highlight of the week. Maverick DeLille.
I remember that.
Maverick DeLille had a really good season series against them, a goal, 4 assists. Joey Lees led the scoring for Flin Flon. Gabriel Corshane had 3 goals and an assist for Yorkton. Again, I expect this to be as tight a series, and I was thinking about it, Clark. Talk about, previewing finals in the last number of years. There was sort of a favorite and a challenger. This time around, and you can take this for what you want, Bomber fans, this is such an evenly matched final. Yeah. As much as the Bombers were the 1 seed, as much as they don't lose at home, and we were kind of wondering about Yorkton's home ice advantage in that round against Battlefords especially. So the Whitney Forum will still be a thing, but the rosters, you put them beside each other, it is very, very tight, and I can't wait for game 1.
And I mentioned it earlier, the travel is going to continue to be a factor.
Yeah, it's a good thing that there's no Minot Americans in the league, because Flin Flon probably would have drawn them.
They probably would have ended up playing them too. Flin Flon, we'll see. Yorkton had a very easy travel schedule in the first round. Second round, manageable, not terrible. What is a 3-hour drive to Battlefords from Yorkton? So not too bad. We'll see if the travel by game 4, by game 5, does anything to Flin Flon, because they have been through it. They've been through the ringer. So keep that in mind. We see the predictions rolling in here on the comments.
Bring them in.
Keep them coming. Let us know your thoughts on the finals. let's have a look at, we have our guest in soon, so we're going to bring Mike Reagan in just a minute, but why don't we start with Flin Flon's team page?
Yeah.
Let's bring up their team stats here, and then we'll bring Mike in after this, I think.
Sure,
Let's do that. Again, we're flying by the seat of our pants here for this show, folks. That's the way it should be. It's great. Connor Miller and Reed Arbery lead the way. Boy, have they been good. Rhett Ewan, he's a playoff beast. I even said that in the preseason show. I remember saying that Rhett Ewan is going to have a big year, and he's a playoff beast.
Yeah.
Daniel Morozov, boy, was he impressive in Game 6 in Weyburn. Just couldn't quite finish, but he was all over the ice. Wyatt Stinton, in a short period of time, in 8 games, he's missed 3 of them. But he has almost a point per game, 6 points so far in the playoffs. He's been fantastic. Ryan Ulmer, look at that number. Ryder Knutson, Xavier Fauchon, Maverick DeLille, Nugsy. The big storyline, though, I think, yes, these numbers are very balanced. We've talked about that, how balanced this production is for the Flin Flon Bombers. But when you look at the goalies, and especially Charlie Tritt, of course, because Finn Werner does only have the 1 game played. This is Charlie Tritt's team.
Yeah.
This is where the strength starts, and it goes out from there.
Yeah, and obviously that graphic doesn't even include, Ryder Muka, who's come back recently.
Sure.
It doesn't
Landon
include Daniel Alexander, who finally played in Game 7.
Yeah.
I think who's such a difference maker. If he's anything close to, can't be 100%, but at least somewhere closer to 80%. I think Alexander the Great, as I like to call him, it makes such a big factor. But there's factors, there's guys that make a difference for Flin Flon to win hockey games. Just so much up and down this lineup. And I watched that Game 7 from start to finish, and I watched this Bombers team, and they played well, and they are so hard to get inside the house against. It's so hard to get into the blue paint. And then when Charlie's taking shots from distance, we've talked about thinking Charlie's the best goalie in the league, goalie of the year. If he can see it, he's going to stop it.
Yeah.
From distance, he's going to stop it. If he gets a chance, there's a bunch of monsters pushing you out of the blue paint. And even, not the biggest guy in Ryder Knutson, but he's as strong as an ox. He'll push you out of the blue paint. So Weyburn just couldn't get inside the house. And that's the way this team is built, is to play defense and to stop you and to take their chances when they get it. Obviously, Connor Miller has been the finisher, as you can see, with his 7 goals.
Right.
If Daniel Morozov had finished,
he'd probably have 7
about
as
half
well.
of his chances in that Weyburn series, he'd be way up there too. He had not just Game 6, he had chances all series. So we'll just tell Mike that if he's listening, that Morozov is kind of saving it, I guess, for when it counts. He hit a bunch of posts and crossbars and breakaways and free penalties. Anyways, he's a great player, and maybe the most skilled player. I would say he's the most skilled player on this team. I was talking to Wyatt Stinton a little bit after Game 7. I said, hey, if you're going to wait to score your first goal in the playoffs, might as well be the only goal of Game 7 and get on to it and get your hometown team to the finals. He said, I was waiting for the right moment, I guess. What a wonderful kid he is. And you go down the list, so many factors. You saw, like last minute, 1-goal game, Ryan Ulmer was on the ice. That shows you the growth that he's had and what Mike Reagan thinks of him. Obviously a Regina kid, very well known, Martin Academy, etc. here in Regina. So look, it's going to be a team that's always tough to deal with. Can they score enough goals? We'll find out. But they were prepared very, very well by the Weyburn Red Wings, Clark, for this final, to play the type of hockey you need to play in the finals. And if you look at a chance for the Flin Flon Bombers to try to break that curse, whatever you want to call it, since 1993. This is a group, again, as good as Yorkton is, they're very, very good in terms of the group, the culture, the team focus, the attitude, and the elite goaltending. They really have everything you need, so it should be a really fun final.
Well, why don't we bring in the man himself and chat with him now? It's Mike Reagan of the Flin Flon Bombers. Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I know there's so much happening in these last 24 hours, and I know the next 24 isn't going to be any lighter on your schedule, so I appreciate your time here. It won't be a super long chat, just want to get your thoughts here. Mike, I remember talking to you early on in the year, and you told us that this was one of your younger teams that you've had in the last little while. Talk to us about the growth and development of your team, I guess. Let's go throughout the playoffs even, because this is a lot of these guys' first crack at, getting to this deep in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that, last year going into the trade deadline, we knew we had a young team with a lot of guys we had 4 17-year-olds and I think 5 18-year-olds and, been around this league a long time. And, history shows that you have a tough time winning with rookies or youth. Usually championship teams have only 2 or 3 rookies in the lineup, and but at the deadline, like, we were aware of that, and we had a great team last year, but the Red Ewans, the Landon Alexanders, Leo Seitz, the Ryder Muka, Wyatt Stinton, those guys were too good to not having the lineup every night, and we didn't want to give up any of them, to get older and give ourselves a better chance last year. So it's paying off this year. They're still young guys, but they've got a year under their belt. And I think going into the trade deadline this year, we had 19 guys eligible to return for next year's team. And, the plan going into the season wasn't necessarily that this was, going to be the year that we would take a big run at it, but you don't get to choose when you do that or not. And I think that we made the decision at the deadline to try to bring in some veteran pieces. And obviously Millsy, Knutson, and Tritter have been huge for us. So I think we've seen a lot of growth from the beginning of the year. When we went on that 6-game losing skid, we were talking about, well, maybe we're just a little bit too young still. And then I know you were mentioning it, and I'm sure Emery doesn't want to hear about it. It was just a bad night for them, but the big turning point for us was the 11-0 win in Yorkton, and from there we only lost 5 games the rest of the year in regulation. So right. I think that we grew a lot in the first month. I think that the 6-game losing skid was a blessing in disguise.
Well, I was going to congratulate you again on reaching the finals, but I think the bigger thing I want to congratulate you on is possibly setting a playoff record for longest distance traveled, Mike. I'm guessing the players, they're younger, they're flexible, they can fit in those seats better. But how is this taking a toll on you? I feel bad for you with all this bus. Now, thankfully, you have a brand new bus. So how's the brand new bus is where I'm going with this.
Well, the old bus was so comfy. It was like those seats were molded to me, or I was molded to them, but I was worried about that, but this new bus is very nice. We got leather seats, and they're extremely comfy. So that was one of the first things that we looked at, to be honest with you. But back to your point, it definitely has taken its toll on me over the years. When I was a little bit younger, the bus trips didn't bother me as much, but it takes a little bit longer for me to recover. And I had a buddy of mine that messaged me last night, and I think he said that we've already traveled 4,800 kilometers in the playoffs. So that's a lot, but you guys, like, you grow up in Flin Flon, you get used to the travel. And that's something we preach from day one. If you're going to come here, like, one of the things that we sell is that we have long road trips, but it prepares us for the playoffs. Right. And that's what the regular season's all about, is preparing for the playoffs. And we think that because of our schedule, we're used to it. Now, is it ideal going to Estevan then Weyburn? Probably not, but there's a lot of adrenaline running through the dressing room right now, so I don't think it's going to phase them.
Perfect. There you go. Yorkton will be a piece of cake then, Mike.
Yeah, it's a short.
That's easy.
Yeah, piece of cake. Basically on the Manitoba border. Bing, bang, boom.
Yeah, it's a I gotta stroll down the road compared to the other.
Just a stroll. Speaking of preparing you for the playoffs, I want to talk about the style of the game last night. First of all, I was thinking, like, what a typical Game 7, right? Like, cagey and grindy and hard to find space, and just the way Game 7 was supposed to be. But just talk about the maturity of your team to not feel anxious, to not get out of their structure, to try to go and get some more goals and whatnot, but to continue to work in what you have. You talk about, you don't have a team full of 20-year-olds like maybe you've had in the past, but in moments like that, sometimes guys lose their focus and go outside of what the script is, but they stuck to the script the full 60 minutes. You must be so proud in seeing sort of the defensive style that you want them to play.
Well, I've preached from day one here that we're not concerned about goals for. We're concerned about goals against, and our biggest focus is being the best defensive team in the league. And it's nights like last night that are going to pay off with that mentality. And I think that I'm really proud of the guys that going into the game. Did I think it was going to be a 1-0 win? No, not a chance. two teams that can score a lot of goals with a lot of threats and that sort of thing. But I'm just proud that our guys found a way to win a 1-0 hockey game, and it's fitting that that we preach all year about defense first, and that's what ended up paying off for us. But Nuge, I'm not too critical of you very often, but you're such a stats man, and you just raised the point of questioning whether we're going to be able to score enough goals. We did finish second in the league in goals scored this year. You realize that, right?
I don't remember saying that. I don't remember saying that you didn't think you were going to score goals.
We'll have to watch the tape over again.
We'll have to have a video review. And we will have video replay in the finals this year. Great segue, Riggs. Appreciate
Great segue.
See, that's some professional broadcasting from Mike Reagan.
He set you up.
There you go. That was a good work. Right? Great job. Now, again, speaking of teams that have a lot of firepower, and you have to agree, obviously the matchup with the Yorkton Terriers is not a comfortable one for anybody, given the weaponry that they have. I know you just finished Game 7. Doesn't give you a ton of time to prepare, but I know you're a very prepared guy. You work extremely hard to make sure. So what are some of your thoughts on your team matching up?
Jeremy Corrigan.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Get him, Ranks.
Matching up with the Yorkton Terriers.
Well, I'm not going to lie. I watched the Battleford Yorkton game last night. I was up till about 5 a.m, doing my homework and trying to prepare for today. And, we're well aware they've got some dangerous weapons over there. And I think that Emery's done a terrific job there. Their deadline acquisition of 3 defensemen that are impact guys, I think, changed the look of the Terriers, I think. But they got a lot of speed. They're similar to Weyburn in the fact that they skate real well. And if you're not paying attention, if you fall asleep for a minute, it's going to be in the back of your net. So we also are very aware that their power play is very dangerous. We faced a team that in Weyburn that their power play was dangerous as well. And, our penalty kill's been great all year. Were there a couple moments in this series that I thought we could have done a better job? Yeah, but I think 3 of the goals that they scored in the series were either 5-on-3 or 4-on-3 goals on the power play. So those are tough to stop. But you take a look at Yorkton had a huge kill against Battleford last night, a 5-on-3. So they're capable of doing it as well. So, they've earned their right to be here just like we have. And it's going to be a very interesting matchup.
So coming out of a Game 7, I have to ask this question. I asked it last year. I got 2 very similar answers from Cody and Trevor last year. How's the health of the team going into the finals? Any concerns? Anybody coming back? How are you feeling? Great?
We're great.
Perfect.
Feel great.
That's exactly what I got last year. I expected it, but I have to ask. Mike, I guess like you kind of mentioned there, you're coming in from a series where Nugsy and I, at least, maybe you'll agree, maybe you won't, but we thought Weyburn was a very similar style team to you guys. Physical, you got scoring up and down the lineup, various different reasons. But Yorkton's a bit of a different style. They have a little bit more offense, maybe like along those lines. So how are you adjusting your team coming in from the semifinals, even going back to the first round, coming into the finals? Is it going to be stick to our guns? Are we changing anything? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I know that Emery's coming on here pretty quick, or did you have him first?
No, you're right. So yeah, he might be. I don't think he's logged in yet, though.
He's not in yet.
He might be watching.
And also, he's not paying any attention. So
yeah. No, I mean, every series is different, you guys. If you're not able to adjust on the fly, you're in trouble. The teams that I call it tread water. If you're going to tread water, you're going to get caught pretty quick, and we're always looking to swim. So, that's our mentality. And there's things that I saw last night that we hope that we can not expose, but take advantage of different style and that sort of thing. And I'm sure Emery's doing the same thing. So it is a bit of a chess match throughout the series. And I believe it was Mapes that said before this series in his interview about you do all the preparation, you spend all this time and hours on preparing for your opponent, and halfway through Game 1, you're throwing that in the garbage and making adjustments, at that point. So there's going to be a feeling out process, I believe, in Game 1, and and then from there it's probably who can make the better adjustments. And I think goaltending comes a big part at this time of year. Who's going to come up with the big save for you and be able to steal one game for you and that sort of thing. And we feel very confident in our guy in Tritter, and obviously they feel really confident in their guys. So I think you got two teams that are really confident and excited to get this going. There's absolutely no rest here. So which is great. I think that it's great for the players. It's great for the fans. It's great for the league. Everybody just dive right back into it tomorrow night. And, probably the guys that I feel sorry for is Rusty. He's got to get up here to Flin Flon, and we got a big snowstorm yesterday. So it's pretty sloppy around here right now, but it's supposed to warm up here. So perfect weather for the league finals.
Oh, well, as always.
It wouldn't be a league finals in Flin Flon without a dump. That's the way it's always been.
We're hitting the road
as long as I've paid any attention.
Right after the show.
It's been crazy here in Regina too. So we hear you. Last question from me. Really appreciate your time. Again, the thing that kept coming to my mind watching the game yesterday was, boy, these Bombers block shots like crazy. You guys, I think Tritt maybe faced 26 shots in his shutout. Maybe you guys blocked 10, 12. I got to look into the numbers, but it was something crazy. You talked earlier in the year, we talked a lot, obviously, about this culture of this team. How would you kind of define, that culture? When people watch this Bombers team, what is the thought that you hope comes to people's heads?
Well, our slogan is built on passion, and we want passionate players that lay it on the line. We're a mining community. We got people that travel kilometers under the ground, and it's not a flashy job or anything like that, but that's how we want our team to play, is just kind of that workman's mentality, and show up night in, night out, be tough to play against, defend well, obviously, and we're going to give everything that we've got every night. So, we talk about how do you want to be remembered here in the dressing room a lot, and I think that's a big thing for us, is making sure that our guys want to be remembered as a Bomber. And we always talk about there's certain type of player that we want, and it's no different. I think everybody that coaches has their type of player, and obviously that's what you try to build your team around, and that. But we just have some certain non-negotiables that we believe in, and we target players like that.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, we'll let you get going here because I know you got a lot to get to, as you mentioned. A lot of stuff to prep for that you're going to throw out in game one. So we'll let you get back to it.
Get a nap in, eh?
Yeah, maybe get a nap. You were up till 5 a.m. last night.
Well, we got to prepare for you guys. You celebrities coming in town here. Make sure everything's lined up for you to be comfortable and enjoy your time up here. So that's going to be most of my days, making sure that you guys are comfortable.
Well, that's what we
should be.
That's what we say. Hockey is about the broadcast.
I expect a red carpet. That's all I'm going to say.
That's right.
Or a maroon carpet.
You get it, Mike. You get it. That's why you're the best.
Mike, you're awesome. Thank you so much. We'll see you in a few hours, I guess. We're going to be there later today, so we'll see if we see you, but we'll see you tomorrow for sure.
Thanks, boys. Enjoy your drive. Drive safe.
Thank you. All right, there's Mike Reagan. We have not yet dived into the Yorkton Terriers, so let's have a look now at the Yorkton Terriers team page, because they are, again, the story is a bit different when we flip the script to Yorkton. As we mentioned with Flin Flon, their scoring is very balanced. The production is spread out throughout their roster. On Yorkton's side, yes, there's a lot of scoring, and it does come a lot from the top, a lot more top-heavy. I shouldn't say top-heavy. That's not a good way to discuss the Yorkton Terriers. But Gabriel Corshane, of course, Jai Zawatsky lead the way. Of course, William Leonard on that line as well for the most part. They've switched it up a little bit throughout the playoffs. Gavin Bartha has been fantastic. 8 goals. Leads the team in goals, Nugsy, as a defenseman. Tommy Reese, second in team goals as a defenseman. You don't see that very often. Vinay Junek, what a playoffs he's had. And of course, Callum Craig, the only goaltender to see the net so far for the Yorkton Terriers. Nugsy, break down Yorkton for me as we await Emery Olauson.
Yeah, I mean, again, special teams are critical as well for the Terriers. Their power play can whip it around as nicely as anybody in the league. And, especially if you go into the Whitney Forum, you're going to need to, have that power play be rolling. But, certainly it's still by committee. Like, they're still getting goals from up and down and contributions from up and down the lineup and in big moments. But yeah, certainly in the biggest moments, that Jai Zawatsky and Gabriel Corshane and William Leonard are going to be out there. Very interesting to see if they, continue to have Trey Peterson, the highly touted prospect of the Tri-City Americans throughout the postseason or not, but or through the finals, I should say, or not. But even then, I mean, you talk about the game-winning goal in Game 7 yesterday. Who took the face-off? To win that face-off, to get it, to Gavin Bartha to get the game-winning goal. It was Ryder McDonald, who, is down on that list there. So, again, you talk about it maybe doing different ways, and maybe it's a little bit more flashy and high octane, and certainly Flin Flon can score. I'm sure Mike is still listening, waiting for us to make mistakes, especially me. But certainly, Yorkton is built to entertain as well as they are to win. And obviously, you talk about the rebuilt decor. Again, I mentioned it earlier. These two teams kind of had historic trade deadlines. Flin Flon adding, Miller and Tritt and Knutson, and then Yorkton reworking their decor, getting Nathan Gray from the Western League, getting Tyler Palin back from the Null, and picking up Bartha, who has, probably been the best trade deadline acquisition. Him and Charlie Tritt, I would say, are 1A, 1B. I don't know if you agree with that, but this Yorkton team is fun to watch, but they can also play a heavy game. We saw it earlier in that round against Battlefords that they were in tighter games and the goals weren't flying in as much. Three of the last 4 games, they've scored 6 goals plus.
Right.
And that's the way the Yorkton Terriers want to play, and they're a lot of fun to watch, Clark.
They are a lot of fun to watch. Now, like you mentioned, will that style translate into a team like the Bombers? We just heard Mike Reagan say, we are more concerned with goals against than our goals for. Now, I'm going to take some accountability, Nugsy, because he called you out, and I feel bad for it. He said that you said that they don't score as many goals. I think that was me, and I think I was just saying because their goal average is lower than Yorkton's, and it was under 3 goals per game. Sure. I'll take accountability. If Mike's still listening, I think it was me. So don't come after Nugsy for it. It was me. And I don't think, like you said, though, I don't think I was saying that they don't score goals. It was just their goal average was a little bit lower. That's all. But why don't we talk to the man at the helm of the Yorkton Terriers? I believe we have Emery Olauson ready to roll. So let's bring Emery in. Emery, Mike said he was up until 5 a.m. last night. I don't know how your night was. I'm assuming it was a late night because I saw you on Facebook pretty late after the game. So how was your night? Obviously, congrats on getting to the finals.
Oh yeah, it was hard to go to sleep for sure. Normally, I got young kids here, and normally after a game, my wife and kids come into the office. They go home. I go home as soon as I can, walk my dog, and by the time I'm back in the kitchen, the house is quiet and dark, and I can just go to sleep. But my wife and 2 of my boys were still up chattering. What about this? This was amazing. It was just it was a hard night to fall asleep after, and amazingly get up today, and I'm not tired. I'm excited. It's Maulers have their camp going on right now, so there's some work to do on scouting and looking at some of the young talent in Saskatchewan, and obviously the logistics of getting through a snowstorm up to the North Pole, as it looks like on that's something that PL is over here cramming through. So we're so excited, and it's you walk back into this rink and it doesn't look right having an empty having the place empty and no fans in it because of just what a core memory that was last night with the place packed, the cement truck humming, and a third period that was one I won't forget.
For sure. Obviously a very exciting atmosphere, and kudos to the whole organization, Emery, for I'll say the rebuild that started. You're far down the line in that process now, being in the finals. Obviously, you started this process. I'm going to say you started it last year with the way that the team was built, the culture that was built last year, carried it over into this year with a lot of good returning players. Obviously, your starting goaltender being a good chunk of it. And he's the only one that's seen the net so far. So let's start there, if you don't mind. Callum Craig, has been so solid throughout these playoffs, keeping games really, weirdly for Yorkton, a lot of the second round especially, fairly low scoring. And he's been a big part of the success. So can you talk to us about the importance of Callum Craig?
Well, he's a winner, like sometimes his save percentage, it doesn't put him in the upper echelon of goaltenders in our league, but I think that's more the style that we play than the quality of goaltender that he is. We don't mind the odd risk and calculated risk, and those this time of year often lead to mistakes, but Callum's good at bailing us out and stopping, a couple grade A scoring chances per period for sure. He's a workhorse. He's such a good teammate, and you know what? He's so consistent and kind of regimented that we trust both goaltenders. I wouldn't be shocked to see Montoya play in this series at all. But it's been one of those things where every single night it's been, well, we can't take him out of the crease now. Look at how well he played again. Right. And then he shows up the next day at practice and looks as sharp as ever. And you watch warm up and it's like, he's just not letting pucks in. So he's been great. He's a core part of this group. And I not to correct you twice, because I got on and I heard you guys correcting something else, but you know what, this rebuild didn't start last year. I got a message from my assistant coach, but it was from Clay Sleva. And I actually think, as hard as that moment was when my first year here, when we recognized, we're not a team that Clay Sleva should finish his season with, because we're not going to win a championship, because we may not even make the playoffs. Clay was moved on. He won a championship with Melfort, but that trade started all of this. For sure. When you look at it, it's Tommy Reese comes across in that trade right around that same time. Ethan Farrow came in. We brought in Jaron Denway, and he needed some upward mobility in the lineup as a 19-year-old. So having a 20-year-old captain understand that and agree and choose Melfort out of four really good contenders as a place that he would go to and would be excited about. That gave us the opportunity to kind of stock our shelves with players we wanted: Cale Johns, David Coyle, Thomas Reese. That changed a lot for us, and it gave us some future, and it let us pick some players that were previously probably picked by Rick Oakes for very good reason, and it changed the course of our our own trajectory as an organization. And so yes, last year the results started coming our way, but it was a really, really difficult decision and discussion that Clay and myself had in December, my first year here.
That's a great point.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we could go down your whole roster, and we don't have time for that, unfortunately. But if we're going to pick one guy out of your roster to really be like, how does this kid do it night in, night out? Tommy Reese, like, obviously before he was a shiny name in this league, you and I, Emery, had some chats, and I'm like, man, boy, is that kid good? And you're like, yeah, that kid's good. We had some conversations, I remember. Like, how is he doing this? What do we not know? What are we not seeing behind closed doors that Tommy can play so many minutes so well? I know you got a deep decor. I'm not saying you play him only, but just he does everything for you, everything well, and seems like such a great leader.
There's character and pride inside that kid that just, it's not in everybody. You can't teach it. He's brought up the right way. He's got a toughness about him. He's got he's going to sacrifice. That's just who he is. You don't have to ask him to do it. You don't have to convince him that it matters. The whole story of Tommy Reese can be summed up. He goes on this Canada West tour for the World Junior A Challenge, and he's probably beat to hell after a tryout camp, and everyone else on that that went through that process on those two teams in Warman probably took the rest of the week off, and maybe even a Monday and Tuesday, and Tommy drove himself to Laurent and told me he's playing. So that's who he is. Wow. He's a massive part, obviously, with with a 19-year-old like Tommy, he's been a leader since he stepped foot here as an 18-year-old, and he's a big reason we win a lot of hockey games. We trust him in every situation. You know, like he's not the prettiest skater. He's not the flashiest puck handler, but we put him on the power play because, you know, guys that work hard deserve it, and guys that sacrifice that much. And it's just such a good signal to our dressing room. This is how you get there. And you know, we say it in Yorkton all the time, work wins here. And Tommy puts in the work. The kid's lived in the weight room since he was 6, or I don't know when he started going, but I asked him when he started bench pressing 300 pounds, and he said, I don't know, 14 or 15. Like,
and just baling hay when he's not doing that, probably.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, exactly. The weight room is where he takes breaks.
yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Day off, go work out.
Right.
All right,
Exactly.
Emery. One thing that we've kind of, I'm not going to say harped on, but we've given a lot of kudos and praise for throughout the season is obviously your top line, elite scoring production out of your top line all season long. That hasn't changed. I'm not saying it has, but your defense lead your team in goals. We mentioned Tommy just now, but Gavin Bartha as well. And I think it was a notable missing piece when Tyler Palin was out for a couple games there, coming back in Game 7, obviously a notable addition. I'll just say this, and you can take it out however you want to in terms of your answer. How huge has it been to have those 3 defensemen you added at the deadline, but the play of the defenseman kind of leading the way, you're kind of starting from the blue line out. How huge has that been for your team throughout the playoffs?
Well, that's our regular season playoffs.
Yeah.
You know, and to have defensemen lead the way, I think it's less rare now than it was 10 years ago,
Sure.
especially with the style that we play. You'll see, you know, like there was a time last night where we had a D-to-D pass in the offensive hash mark, and we were up by 1. So, like our defensemen get in on the forecheck at times. It's within our system. It's the way we want to play. You know, there isn't very many better attacking defensemen than Tommy Reese and Gavin Bartha and Tyler Palin. And honestly, Brett Buckley's learning to play this way, and he's an offensive defenseman too. And yeah, there was several times last night, if you watch close, it's like, oh, that was a good forecheck, but wasn't that number 44 that was F1 and
Right.
number 34 that was F2?
Yeah.
What the hell's going on out there? So
Yeah.
it's the way we play. So, you know, it does it shock me that they're leading the team in goals just with, you know, the elite goal scoring that we have on our first line, second line, and honestly, like probably more shocking to me that a player like McDonald, right? He's sitting right now without a goal, but he's played just amazing.
Yes.
I think he's probably up there in the top 15, 20 players in shots on net, but he's also finding players backdoor and making great plays and you know, swiping some pucks back on faceoffs. So, you know, that Gavin Bartha goal to the game-winning goal last night does come off of a clean draw, right? So there's centerman, there's traffic provided by wingers. Gavin had to pull the trigger and make a great shot, but you know, all these goals, especially this time of year, it requires a breakdown on the other side, and it requires everyone on our team doing the right things.
And I think to your point, just to add to it, Vinay Junik is you would call him your secondary scoring leader. He's got 6 goals. He's 3rd in the team in goals.
Yeah.
So it's spread out. It seems like the system is working quite well. Is all it was a compliment.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Clark's full of confidence. Last question for me, Emery. Appreciate your time.
Yes.
You'll be sick of us by the end. Don't worry. If you aren't already, which is very possible.
I'll probably be bugging you on the bench during the finals,
probable.
Emery.
I'll
Apologies
be throwing
in
stuff
advance.
at your head, maybe M&Ms. I got to ask you a bit about the culture in your room. So last 2 games in a row, you guys have had third periods. I don't know what you're saying in the intermission there or who's saying what, but your third periods just continue to be unbelievable. The last 2 games especially. I guess just talk about what's going on inside that room, because when I look at, the one thing to me that, you know, is the same between you guys and Flin Flon heading into the series is I watch these two teams, yes, deep, talented, well coached, blah, 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 but I don't see ego. I don't see bad body language from even veterans lower in the lineup. I don't see any of those bad habits of character and of resilience or lack thereof. I see two teams that are so mature that way. What is it about your team that helps them dig deep, find ways to win, or whatever the situation is when the odds are against them? Because you're going up to the Whitney Forum, I don't need to tell you, and that is not an easy place to be.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. We know it's going to be packed there. I was talking to Mike last night after after the win, we both won, and I'm glad that we get to go head to head with Flin Flon. There was a time, I think a turning point in our season was when Flin Flon beat us 11-0 here in Yorkton, because that night we had some bad body language and it wasn't the same as it looks right now, and not because we made a lot of changes. People talk about three moves that we did make on the back end, but Tyler Palin called over Christmas and he wanted to come to Yorkton and really preferred and enjoyed his time in the SJHL and here. So that, like, some of that was kind of by accident, having three. We knew we wanted to upgrade one. We had a 20-year-old Quebec defenseman that wanted to go closer to home at the same time. So there was a necessity there. And honestly, the Bartha trade started with me watching a forward that had asked for a trade out of Swan River. So I went out there and decided if I'm going to make a trade with Swan River, I'd like it to be for Gavin Bartha. And we made that happen. So yeah. And now that we're healthy, Drew Heil just came back from a pretty long-term injury, and now we've got Mikhail Buds healthy. So our decor's healthy and ready to go, and we've got 8 plus, a very unknown and underrated Veroba, who's played one game with us and scored a goal. So they've been great, and that. So can't even remember what your question was, but.
What's going on in the room in the second intermission?
Yeah. Okay. So depth, I think the guys have a good way of keeping it light, but there's having fun, there's enjoying the moment, but you have to stay intense and in it. And I think our leadership does a great job with that. All I said, the third period all year has given us, we have evidence that we're a good third period team. I think, if you point to it, that comes down to depth. We use our third and fourth line a ton. We go into the third period last night, and Gabriel Corshane had played 10.5 minutes up to that point. So we knew we had plenty of life left in him. Zawadzki, he could play a ton of minutes, but we have him sitting at 11, and Leonard, same thing. Like, he's an efficient player. He finishes checks, but he's sitting at 10 minutes going into the third period. Well, they've got a lot of minutes to give. And so, when it's time to shorten your bench, our guys have a lot of energy. So that's part of it. But part of it is just, we've got a group that's got some pretty dogged determination. They want to get here. They made the decision last summer. We want to be contenders. We want to win a championship. We want to win a division. And they remind themselves, and we remind them often, what you want and what you get don't always align unless you're willing to put in the work, and they do here. So I think that's most of it.
Absolutely. Emery, it's a kind of a tradition. I asked Mike. Last year I asked Trevor and Cody, who went into the finals, the same question. I got very similar answers. Not very long answers. So feel free to answer this however you want. How's the health of the team going into the finals right now?
Better than we started the playoffs.
Perfect.
Somehow, some way, we've got through all this, and we will be missing a couple of players, but we were missing a couple of players at the start, and generally the group, I think, is, they're tired. We've played a lot of hockey over the last 3-4 weeks, but they're excited. They're ready to go, and there's more options that we have to throw in the lineup now than there was at the start.
Perfect. Well, that's not too bad then. That's good. All right, Emery, congrats on making it to the finals. We'll see you up in Flin Flon for sure. We're hitting the road. I know you're hitting the road a little bit later, so we'll probably be in similar driving paths later on today. So appreciate your time here today. Congrats, and we'll see you up north.
Yeah, if you guys could put a plow on the front of your truck so we can get through, that'd be great.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll do our best. All right, Emery. See you later.
Thank you.
All right, there we go. We've heard from both coaches, Nugsy. We've again, what is it, dived in. We have delved. Thank you, Ryan. I knew there was another word in there. We have delved into the depths of both teams. Let me hear your thoughts now that we've heard from both coaches. Keys for both teams as we enter the finals.
Yeah, I mean, for the Yorkton Terriers, you go up to Flin Flon, you have to win a game up there at some point. It's got to be tough, but this is a Yorkton team that has shown that they're not afraid of anything. So, you know, good first 5 minutes for the Yorkton Terriers. They know they have that third period in their back pocket because they're a great third period team. And you know, again, just take their chances. They may not be as regular as they were against Battlefords, but take your chances. For Flin Flon, it's the same thing. Throw pucks in Tommy Reese's corner, pound the bleep out of him, pound the bleep out of Gavin Bartha. That's what Flin Flon's going to do.
Definitely.
Mike Reagan doesn't need my tip. But physicality continues to be the thing. When Flin Flon, listen, folks, when Flin Flon isn't playing fast, when they aren't playing with urgency, when they're not playing with intensity, we've seen a very flat Flin Flon team at times. Same goes with Yorkton and everybody. So this isn't a bunch of demigods out there for the Bombers. They're a good junior hockey team, and they're good at physical. When they play with their pace, the physicality, they're very, very tough to beat. But they're not a perfect team. So we've got two teams that have holes, two teams that have lots to like. I think it's going to be a long series. It's very, very evenly matched. Two teams that believe. And the last thing I'll say is, you talk about leadership, Clark. You're gonna look at Tylen Henriksen and Tommy Reese in the eye and say, hey, I'm not gonna back check, I'm not gonna work hard, and you're on the Yorkton Terriers. If you know those kids, you're not saying that to those guys' face.
No.
They are serious leaders, and the same goes for Flin Flon. You know, Yakum Chuck
A team of leaders.
And Joey Lees and those guys who just bleed Flin Flon.
For sure.
Like, it's two teams that care about their communities, care about their teammates, care about their clubs. It's what you want in a final, and I just can't wait.
It's going to be so good. And the one thing that's going to be something to watch for me anyways is obviously the Whitney Forum is unique. We know that. We don't have to say that. But a bit of a smaller ice surface in terms of what Yorkton's used to seeing, I think, so far in the playoffs. I think Yorkton and Battlefords, Melville, all very, standard, we'll say. Flin Flon's so going up there, Flin Flon's used to it, of course, obviously. They know how to play well there. They have a massive defensive core. So how is Yorkton going to find that space to move around in the offensive zone that we've seen them do so well all season long? We'll find out. But that is the question in my mind. Can Flin Flon take advantage early on in games 1 and 2 of that scenario compared to Yorkton, who's maybe not quite used to it at this point in the season? Playing up north, they've kind of stepped. Well, I guess Battlefords is technically up north. You know what I mean. Anyways, it's going to be a great, great time. Nugs, I'm just going to quickly thank our sponsors one more time as we get into this. Of course, we're in the finals now. These guys have been with us all season. The CANTERRA Seeds Cup will be handed out within the next 2 weeks. We don't know exactly when that will happen yet, of course, but CANTERRA Seeds, big shout out to them. Canalto Hotels, Capital Automotive Group, SGEU, Sask Lotteries, of course, UPL, our playoff sponsor, our broadcast and show sponsor. Big shout out to UPL, Chevrolet, Great Western Brewing Company, SaskTel, RBC, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, and Vaderstad. Thank you to everybody for watching here. Hopefully we prepped you and primed you for the finals as best as we could. We're going to have so much more coverage, though. We're not done yet. We're nowhere near done in terms of coverage. So make sure you're following us on all of our social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. We'll put some stuff up on TikTok as well. Flow Hockey, if you're not in the two communities or around the two communities to watch these games, get your subscription because they're going to be some great broadcasts. And if you're not feeling like watching online and you have SaskTel, Nugsy and the crew, well, I'm part of it, I guess, but Nugsy and Austin Mattis are going to be calling all the games on SaskTel Max TV, live local. Channels, it's 48 and 348, I believe. If you have SaskTel, you can watch all potentially 7 games on there. So we got plenty of options for you here now that we're into the finals, the CANTERRA Seeds Cup. It's a great time. We know we're getting a new champion, a team that hasn't won in the minimum 12 years. Yorkton, 2014. Flin Flon has not won since
And these
93.
teams have never faced each other,
Right.
despite the fact that Flin Flon is going to their 100th year.
Yeah.
Yorkton's one of the classic franchises in our league.
Yeah.
And they've never faced each other in the finals.
And they haven't played each other in the playoffs
At all.
since 1989.
So, history.
Nugsy was alive, but I
was 2 years old.
87.
I'm 87, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, it's been a while. So this is exciting.
As Stained would say.
Yeah, you know, it's been, yeah. Where's Jeremy Corrigan at? Been a while. Anyways, guys, it's going to be fantastic. Thank you, everybody. We had some great numbers of viewers watching the show today. Really appreciate everybody's interest. We're glad we can bring this to you. Huge thank you to the guys in the back for getting here early this morning, waking up, setting everything up in advance, because we had a tight turnaround here this morning to get this all out. So appreciate that for them. Kelly upstairs pumping out graphics all morning as fast as he could. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Emery. Thank you to the two teams. Thank you to the broadcast crew that we're about to get into. Hopefully everything goes well with that.
We love you, Rusty. We love
Rusty
you.
and the boys at Bamboo Shoots, Sastel. It's going to be a great finals broadcast. I really just hope that they have good travels to get up there.
Yeah.
We'll see. Stay tuned. Anyways, it's going to be great. Really excited for it. Flin Flon, Yorkton, Game 1 is Friday. Let's check out the schedule here as we wrap up the show. Game 1 Friday night, 7:30 Flin Flon time, 6:30 Saskatchewan time. Repeat that for Saturday night, and then a couple of days off. So the schedule changes a little bit from what we're used to from the first two rounds of the playoffs. Game 3 is not until Wednesday, April 22nd. Game 4 will be Thursday, April 23rd. And Game 5, if necessary, of course, we'll be back in Flin Flon Sunday, April 26th. And then a couple of days off in between again. Wednesday, April 29th will be Game 6 if needed in Yorkton. And finally, back up to the Whitney Forum if needed for Game 7. That's Friday, May 1st. So it's a bit more spread out than we're used to in the first couple of rounds. Of course, travel. Of course, broadcasters need a little extra time in between.
Yep.
Not us, the crew and everything. But we will be back here for you guys on Monday with SJHL Weekly, normal show for you, covering games 1 and 2. If we're awake and feeling all right and alive, we'll be here.
Yep.
So until then, everybody, enjoy the weekend. Games 1 and 2, it's going to be fantastic. See you on Monday. Bye for now.
Huh? Good effort, but still an L.
That'll do it. Yeah, that'll do it. Yeah, I'd say that'll do it. Yeah, I'd say that would do it.